live over there?
It says it's live.
You haven't come up yet. There it is. Perfect. Thank you.
Go get him.
Hello, all you melanated beauties. Found you black dots and lips. This is called the black tea spirit. I'm giving power to pull you into the golden cup.
All right, all right, all right. Melanated people, this is your girl Coy with your black tea sip. Listen, you're going to want to grab your cups, babies, because I'm going to fill it up. We got so much to talk about today. We have got people yelling, stop counting. And then the other group of the same group is saying count. So we don't really know what exactly is going on. We do know that the orangutan running the three-ring circus from the Oval Office is not disappointing when it comes to shits and giggles. So here we go, ladies and gents. Let's talk about some of the stuff that's going on with Pennsylvania, for instance. Philadelphia, well, you know, the home of brotherly love. Philadelphia has put the kibosh on the counting because there is a lawsuit looming that suggests that 29,000 ballots are in dispute. And they will not begin to count again until tomorrow because they're waiting on a judge's ruling. In that same vein, there was a group of people, the Trumpsters, that showed up at a Detroit counting place and said they wanted them to stop counting until they could gain access. Now, they didn't use the word meaningful access. We'll talk about that in a minute. They just wanted them to stop counting. The funny thing is, there was no one home. There was nobody there because all the ballots had already been counted. See, they tried that before, and it just didn't work because we are talking about Detroit. So here we are in the midst of trying to figure out who is going to represent us. And we're trying to figure it out while we've got Black Lives Matter protesters accused of stabbing Proud Boy members. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, that's exactly what I said. The DC Police Department released a statement at 6:15 a.m. Election, it was the day after election, so November 4th, suggesting that around 6:15, the initial report said there were 3 Proud Boy members that had been stabbed by, you guessed it, Black Lives Matter. So the BLM is just out there stabbing up Proud Boys. I don't even understand how they got stabbed. They're supposed to be some of the most menacing, the greatest fighters of all time, the invincible Proud Boys. So I don't understand how they got stabbed. But at 7:50 a.m. that same morning, there was a statement of retraction. And the DC Police Department said they don't know who is involved and they don't have the identities of the stabbers. You know why they don't have the identities of the stabbers? Because after the statement was made and released to all media, local media networks, the police chief got involved. And then, guess what? Some people actually talked to the victims. And after they talked to the victims told them they couldn't really say who stabbed them. So they retracted the whole thing about Black Lives Matter. Now, what I do know about police departments as a whole is that they all were born, they were from a springboard of patty rollers, those folks that stopped slaves from escaping. And so it is this notion, I've talked about this before, but let's just have a little history lesson. There's this notion that the police department is full of systemic racism and there are nothing but Klansmen that are in the police department. Well, no, it's not exactly true. It's not necessarily true that they're all that way. I do think that when they talk about there are just a few bad apples, it seems like the bad apples are overrunning. There's worms in all the apples as far as I'm concerned, because these kinds of statements never should have been made. And why are they being made about Black Lives Matter? Well, is it because the orangutan has decided that Black Lives Matter members and protesters are a domestic terrorist organization? Well, I'm not sure if that's why the police department in DC targeted Black Lives Matter members, but I will say this, and I'll say it loud and proud. I don't like it, I'm proud. I will say this, that it seems to me that we always have an accusation against Black people. People of the African diaspora, people that your president, who's fighting for his life, suggest that are all from crap hole countries. There seems to be this notion that black people, you know, the same people that you shoot when their hands are in the air, or they tase them on the ground, or they ram them into the pavement or the car. There seems to be this notion that black people are menacing and going around terrorizing people, when in fact, the Proud Boys who were told to stand by and stand up, well, then they are now being accused of being victims. I'm using the word accusation because really they didn't have a clue who did what. I think that we should all pay very close attention to what's being said. The police chief said, no, retract the statement. Because now there seems to be this notion that we're not going to be a part of this Klan movement, and the Klan is alive and well. Because we saw that very apparently in Maricopa County when they showed up to stop the county. People had to be escorted to their cars by sheriffs. I don't know what's going on right now. It's more than just stopping the counting or keep on counting or 253 or maybe even 264 if you listen to the Associated Press for Biden. I'm not sure what's going on. What I can tell you is this whole idea about civil war where they're going to try to make it happen. This is called the Black Tea Sip. Y'all stay tuned, take a quick commercial break, and we'll be right back. They don't kill these people. You know, black people need to be careful. Or was I not muted? Sorry.
I knew I was gonna love this show.
Yeah, I just think, okay, I've got a commercial from TPTI. I'm gonna play that and come back in.
TPT, I got you.
What time do we start? I didn't pay attention. I don't know what time I started.
Let's see. I would say maybe like 3:34-ish.
Okay.
3:33, 3:34.
It was only 5 minutes? Okay, that's good. What time is it?
And you could just give me a hand gesture if you want me to run the song on into your commercial.
Okay.
Just
So
I'll just
I'm gonna
follow
take
your
a
vibe on
break.
that.
Yeah, I kind of break to like reset because I got all these papers. I try to stay like 15 to 17 minutes, but I don't really do that.
Just follow your spirit. I'm right here with you.
But I use so I have these sponsors, and so I try to make sure. So I run them, and then at the 53 mark, I run all three of them. It's a book. What's the book called? Lord help me. I Am. It's a book. I Am. That's a commercial. It's simply Ardor, ARDOR, and then TPTI, and I usually run all of them. And then I come back in my promo at the next hour. We started 7 minutes ago, according to Facebook people. You know, Facebook censors me a lot.
Oh, let me just say quiet on that. No, you said the book is called I Am?
Yeah.
Don't worry, I'll have it before I'll go through these one by one until
And if you don't find it and you just need to plug it later, it's fine. I mean, it's not.
Oh no, we're gonna have a clean show here. I'm gonna find this out. I'm gonna find it.
This is a good hour. I wonder how many people will watch because the check at 11 o'clock pressure. But whenever my kids go back to school, I'll be picking them up. And I'm hoping for the end of Corona very soon. I pray to God they go to school in January.
Right, right. Yes, ma'am.
I need them to go to school. Mm-hmm. Somebody watching it right now.
All right.
Because it's not my normal time, and I'll just delete this.
Hey, but the thing is, though, step on out to a new demographic. Maybe people catch you for the first time now, especially today.
Yeah.
You gonna pick up you have some more followers today.
I went to this little watch party. It's very social distance. It's cool.
Mhm.
And this girl was like, "Hey, cool." And I was like, "Hey, you know, I didn't know." But she had a mask on, so I didn't, you know. And then she was like, "I listened to your flat too." I was like, "Oh, huh?" And she was like, "I enjoy you so much."
That is awesome. All right, we're going into your thing. We'll be back in 30 seconds.
Okay.
Trying to get you ready to unmute. Give them hell, Miss Coy.
We're gonna do our best.
The thing is, I think Facebook muting you too just makes it like the old NWA. It makes you want to go out and buy the real Apple when they trying to, you know.
Well, I've started putting no rights to music now, and it seems to be a little better.
All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, go get them.
All right, this is Coy with your Black Tea Sip. If you're just joining us, we are talking about, well, what else? The presidential election. Now, as you well know, I'm in favor of Joe Biden winning because I don't think the circus animals ought to be running the country. And the orangutan running the three-ring circus from the Oval Office has created a situation where just today we found out that 100,000 people were diagnosed with COVID yesterday. So here's my thing. Here we are in the middle of an election, and everybody is going crazy on, Florida. Florida has a diverse population that is full of minorities, and the minorities, when you start to think about Latinos, they are not monolithic. They are no more one-dimensional than we are as Black people, right? Okay, so we can check that box. But here's the problem that I have, because I used to live in Florida. Well, it was really Southern Georgia, because Jacksonville, but I've digressed. So here's the thing that bothers me about really trying to understand the Hispanic community and the Latino community, right? So the Hispanic community, there's a demographic within that subset that has decided they are Caucasian Hispanic. I didn't even know that was a thing, you know, like educate me, NPR. So here we are, we're always yelling Black and brown, and we're always talking about civil rights and civil liberties, and we group Hispanics and Latinos, Blacks all together, right? And if nothing else has shown you not to do that, this election has. Because let's talk about and break down, just give me a few minutes. Let's break down what we're really talking about when we talk about Hispanics and Latinos. Well, now within all of these various classifications and ethnicities of people, the suggestion that they're all going to think the same and vote the same is just as crazy to think that all Black people, whether they're Black Dominican or Haitian or African or African American or where they're from in the African diaspora, we are really talking about people with their own minds and their own concerns. Now, we as Black people have an expectation, and I'm guilty of this as well. Let's go on and tell the truth, family. I'm guilty of this as well. We as Black people expect us, to have an idea about what it's like to live in this sun-kissed skin and exist in this country. Now, there's some of us that thrive, and there are others of us that survive, and we expect the thriving of us to assist in the survival of the rest of us, right? Do we not? Well, I think the same expectation exists within the Hispanic community and the Latino community. And I'm separating the two because they're not one and the same. And I think that we need to understand that when we start to group people together in our fight, in the identity of our fight, right? So in Florida, for instance, huge Cuban population. Well, Trump, and I've said this so many times before, Trump seems to believe that, and the Republicans have done a very good job, but he took it to the next level, being an orangutan and everything. So he seems to think that if you just tell a story, it doesn't have to be a truthful, and then it have to be based on the truth. If you tell a story and you tell it well enough, people are going to listen and buy into it. And I be doggone. That's exactly what happened in Florida. So when we're looking at the debacle of Florida and we're saying, well, we had greater expectations of the state being blue, and they are saying, they're railing back at us, and they're saying, well, we are not monolithic, we are not one-dimensional in our thinking, our idealisms. Well, no. But here's what happened with the Republican Party. They said Biden is like Bernie, and he's a socialist. Now, you have to unpack that. Socialism to Cubans who have solid ties and understanding to Cuba, they understand socialism to be tantamount to communism. And so what they are afraid of is their freedoms and their liberties and their lifestyle to be restricted in the same way that it was in Cuba. And no, I'm not saying Cuba, I'm saying Cuba because that's what they say. And I figure you ought to be able to call your home what you want. So when we look at that and we say there's a breakdown, well, there was a divide. There was a divide that suggested that those that were, I think, more of the understanding of what it means to be a Democrat or a Republican in this country, and to understand the idealisms of Republicans and Democrats in this country. And no, I am not suggesting that all Republicans are bad and all Democrats are good, no more than I will suggest to you that all white people are bad and all black people are good. And we all know that ain't the truth. So I'm not going to suggest that. What I am going to do, boys and girls, ladies and gents, sun-kissed by God's lips, is help you understand that we as Democrats have to tell a better story. That is why we lost Florida. Because the Republicans do a very good job of telling a story. And I mean a story. You know, like when your grandmama told you don't tell a lie, tell a story, those kind of stories. And we as Democrats, we don't do that. We're about data and stats and figures because we're very intelligent. And we don't tell a story well enough to help them understand that data and those stats and those figures. And so when they understood it, the Cuban population, that Biden was a socialist and Trump said that socialism was communism, we lost them because we didn't help them understand what that means. So now we turn and we start to look at other Latinos and Hispanics throughout the nation. We can't expect them to all relate because there are children in cages and 2,000 of them are still missing to this day. Because you know why? That's a Mexican problem. That's an immigrant problem, Honduras maybe, but certainly not someone from Cuba or Puerto Rico or maybe even the Dominican. That's not really their issue. So when we start to look at these things and we group them all together, we have to have a better understanding of what their plight is. Because certainly, I've often said to you, and many of you think that I should not say it, but I don't really feel Tyler Perry movies because that's not my story. My man didn't beat me. My dad didn't run off from my mama. My grandmama didn't have 753 kids. You know, that's not my issue. Now, shouts out to those that got a big family. I kind of wish I had one. But that's not my issue. And I'd like to see a story where the guy actually gets away with the money and the girl and just so happens to also be black. We don't fall within that category either. So the suggestion that they have disappointed us because we expected the Latino community or the Hispanic community in Florida to be aligned with us, well, that's our fault. As African Americans in this country, thinking that everybody understands our plight the same way. No, babies. They do not. That's our fault. That's our problem. As the greatest minority population, voting population, and the black women as the backbone of the Democratic Party, what we need to do is help them understand better how to win races. Now, I hope it's not lost. I believe, way to go, Joe, gonna bring it on home. But we do need to do a better job of helping other people understand what exactly is at stake. See, I think if we hadn't talked about children in cages and not just talked about COVID and actually talked about things like Social Security. Because see, there are people that are Latino that have been working And all they're going to get, all grandmama or abuela is going to get is Social Security. She doesn't have a pension. Then you need to communicate that, because by 2023, Trump is going to, I did say Trump is going to defund the funding source for Social Security. See, I've talked about that before, but we have to be able to translate that. You understand? Because that is a situation that transcends race and ethnicity. And really it also translates ilk and status, because everybody can understand what that's like if you don't get that Social Security check and you've worked your whole life for it. I mean, aside from the fact that you're never going to get all your money in Social Security anyway. And if you're my age, you shouldn't even expect it. But the Black folks and Latinos that have been working their whole life, and that's the only pension they're going to get, they need to understand that by 2023, mid-year, that funding source dies. And once Social Security dies, it cannot be revived. It's not going to rise up like a phoenix from the ground and come back to the United States and help you. That's over. That is the kind of message we should have. And Joe Biden did, but he didn't communicate it in the Latino populations very well. It wasn't communicated in a way that was tangible, that was palatable, that they could see it and taste it and feel it and smell it. That did not happen. And it certainly did not happen in the state of Florida. If we want to align ourselves with Latinos and Hispanics and to have them join us in our fight and vice versa for civil liberties in this country, then what we also need to be talking about is how COVID is taking out the Hispanics and Blacks at an alarming rate. And what should have been said more times than not, it should have been woven into the fabric of the Biden-Harris speech, is that there is a plan ready to go. We need to not just talk about the fact that the orangutan running the three-ring circus from the Oval Office just round filed it when Obama handed it over and said, hey, here's a plan. And he round filed it. You know what round filed is? No, what's round filed is. That's when you take that, oh, thank you. And you send your desk and then we'll go ahead and drop it in your waste paper basket. So it's been round filed. And so he also got rid of, and y'all know this, he also got rid of the pandemic response team because he saw no need for them. Now, let me tell you what someone who's not an orangutan or a circus animal would have done. They would have called those people and said, look, I made a mistake. The mistake is, we're going to keep it in-house, but we need help. You have Deborah Bird that's now saying that they have to take aggressive moves from the White House to stop the spread because, again, y'all didn't know I was going to do the COVID corner so early, because now we realize 100,000 people on Wednesday contracted or diagnosed with COVID. You know what? So you take 100,000 people. Let's do just a little bit of math. I mean, I don't want to bore you or anything, but just teeny little bit of math. You take 100,000 people. Each one of those persons was in contact with 10 people. You know what that means? That means in a very short time, 1 million people will have it in the United States. See, so when you tell that kind of story, I mean, you could tell that to a Martian. It doesn't have to be Black. It doesn't have to be Hispanic. It doesn't have to be Caucasian. You can Native American, Asian, European. You tell the story that way, it resonates. But let me tell you something else we did wrong. We, the White House, but the Americans, we had this message from the CDC. And the message was, wear a mask and to protect others. Well, we are a capitalistic society. We don't really care about other people. So guess what happened? People started dying, 200,000, 220,000, because let me get the number right. Because we said, wear a mask, save a life. Instead of wear a mask, save your own life. That was the problem. See how we don't tell a good story? We don't tell a story that's palatable. See, most of us are kinesthetic learners. We got to touch it. Got to be able to smell it. Got to be able to have it palatable so you taste it so it feels good going down. We don't tell a good story. Where we expected a blue wave and we were trying to downplay the red mirage, this is why, babies. This is why. We didn't tell a story good enough for people to actually buy into it. So yes, I do believe the way to go, Joe, is gonna bring it on home. Way to go, Joe. But I also think that there should have been a landslide, and that we didn't have. So right now, I think we're at 226 in Congress and 207, and I'm not looking at my sheet, so y'all forgive me if I'm a little off. 207 Republicans against 226 Democrats in the Congress, House of Representatives, but we needed the Senate. And the Senate is so important because we need Joe to go all the way. We need Kamala to have the support to implement the very plans that I'm talking about. We need Mitch McConnell, who has 400 bills on his desk, to move off of the desk and to start being signed by a real president who is not a circus animal, so that we can get the help that we need. We actually need a president in place so that people can get a check, because we're in a pandemic and people do not have jobs. And if you get sick and you are now diagnosed with a pre-existing condition that is lingering from COVID, then we need to make sure that there's no legislation to stop that. I think we said all of that, didn't we? Didn't we talk about all of that as Democrats? But unfortunately, they didn't say it like me. See, the problem is we don't have good storytellers. We don't have people who help us understand what's at stake. So we had this Florida debacle. You know, and here's the other thing that Trump is doing very vigilantly, filing all these frivolous lawsuits. One person actually said, one of the attorney general's office in one state, they did not name that person. I have an idea who it is, but let me spill that tea. Said that it looked like these lawsuits that they're filing in Wisconsin. I think we're waiting to see if they're going to file one in Arizona. They filed it in Michigan. Understanding that Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, they've all been thrown out. They said that the lawsuit, it may as well have been written in crayon. It was so frivolous and it was so juvenile, it looked like somebody put it together on the blacktop while everybody else was running around playing tag and duck goose. He has no intention. He knows he can't win. But he has to show the Proud Boys, you know, the same people that got stabbed by the Black Lives Matter people, but not for real, in D.C. So he has to show a sign of force. But what has happened in this sign of force is you now have protests in the United States where one group of people is saying, stop counting the votes. Let me tell you what that's the problem. You stop counting the votes, Trump, you lose. See how, well, I told y'all how my grandmama said, if it don't make sense, it's a lie somewhere. Well, this doesn't make sense, so find the lie. Well, all you have to do is punch a teeny weeny little thing at the Oval Office and find an orangutan, and there you go. So here we are. We're waiting on ballots to be counted. We're seeing lawsuits everywhere. We're seeing them being thrown out, and I think that I like the Pennsylvania Attorney General, Josh Shapiro. I think I like him above anybody else right now, except for Kamala, of course. I mean, but never mind, I digress. So he said that they continue to file these lawsuits even before early voting. And his statement was, and it was much like Jane Hamilton, her statement. Remember I had her on the show, she's a senior advisor to the Biden campaign, and she's filed 3 separate lawsuits against Greg Abbott in the state of Texas, our governor, you know, Governor Hot Wheels. And she's filed 3 lawsuits because of the things he's done. And she said, and we beat him every time. And if he does it again, I'm going to beat him again. Well, I guess they're kindred spirits. Jane Hamilton, senior advisor of the Biden campaign, and Josh Shapiro, Attorney General for Pennsylvania, because he said if they file it again, we'll beat him again. Because Trump is suggesting that he's going to be able to get a case to the Supreme Court. Now, SCOTUS has already decided they're not going to deal with it. In the very same way that when Trump filed a lawsuit in Texas, Harris County, in which they attempted to disavow and disenfranchise, there's the key word, underline it, see it flashing, disenfranchise 127,000 people in Harris County because they voted curbside. Curbside in the state of Texas allows you to vote while you're in your car so that you don't have to interact with other people or interact with the machine that other people have interacted with in a closed-in space where there are several people milling around. You had the option in the state of Texas to vote curbside at your car. Well, they wanted to disavow those votes. Not disavow the votes in Dallas County, not disavow the votes in Travis County, Bexar County. No, Harris County, because you know what? If they could win in Harris County, then guess what they were going to do? It's going to be like a little snowball, but not for real babies. Because a Republican judge, Judge Hayden, who was appointed by W, Bush W, baby Bush, he said no. But he didn't just say no. He said no in the same way that SCOTUS has said no previously, precedent in bringing these kinds of lawsuits. He said, no, you don't have standing, which means I'm not going to rule on the merit of it because you don't have the right to even bring the case to court. You don't have a right to stand before me and bring this mess. That's the translation. So when Judge Hayden said no, they threw it away. So these lawsuits that are happening, and what Trump is attempting to do is find a way where they throw the case out, and then Trump will try to appeal it and try to get it through the appellate process, because his belief is if he can get it to the Supreme Court, because he has 3 nominees currently serving on the Supreme Court, they will rule in his favor. He wants to believe that he is going to embody W, George W. Bush, and be able to push it through the Supreme Court where they will declare him the winner, like they did in Florida. Well, I lived in Florida at the time. I worked for the Gore-Lieberman campaign. At the time, there was a black congresswoman named Corrine Brown, and her office was the headquarters. And we worked that campaign. And I can tell you firsthand that I know the things that happened in that state. I can tell you firsthand that there was a precinct by Edward Waters College, which is an HBCU in Jacksonville, Florida, shout out to Duval, in which ballots were in the dumpster. That happened. I am a living witness. My friends who watch this show, who lived in Florida, and we all went to school together, they will tell you that is true. Several of us went to Tallahassee to testify. They didn't let us speak because we knew the truth. Especially the college students, were being disenfranchised, and they were throwing their ballots away. But here is what happened in Florida, and I don't know if you've heard this. What happened in Florida is the Bush team called the election state overseer. I can't remember the name that they actually call it in Florida. And she is the one that oversees the ballots for the state. She is the one that helps certify the ballots, because you get your unofficial tally, and then like 5 or 7 days later, then they'll actually certify them. They go through the process, everybody signs it, and then that's the real deal, right? Okay. So usually they declare a winner before the votes are actually certified. You can file for a recount and have them recount before the ballots are certified. So they give you time if you want to do that. We'll talk about that in a minute. So in Florida, what they did is in Broward County, remember Broward County? Broward County, they said, call it. And she said, we're not finished counting. And they put pressure on her and they bullied her. I'm kind of like hearing in my head, like, you don't want this to be the last time that you do this job, do you? Like, I hear that in my head. And she succumbed to the pressure because Bush's dad had been the director of the CIA, had been vice president, and had been president of these here United States. And it was a very powerful, rich, political family, and she was scared. So guess what she did? She called the state for Bush while ballots were still being counted. So remember, then we had a challenge, and Gore and Lieberman and the team went to the Supreme Court to fight it. We had the hanging chads, and then first they went to the Florida Supreme Court, which is Republican, the Democrats, so that I don't have to bore y'all with what folks look like. And so then it went on to the Supreme Court, and guess what happened? You had Clarence Thomas that made that ridiculous statement, but I don't want to call him what he really, well, he's a jackass. I was going to call him something else. Let's just call him a jackass, because that's a real animal, and I'm not being insulting. Well, maybe to the animal. And so Clarence Thomas, he made these ridiculous statements, and they all got out there, Scalia, and they all made these comments about how justice was preserved when they stole the election. And Trump, because he's a thief and all his friends are thieves, and we know they're thieves, because the Southern District of New York has been indicting them left, right, backwards and forwards, almost like a Aaliyah song. Back and forth and forth. We've been hearing and seeing and watching it all unfold. So that's what Trump is actually waiting for. We're going to take a quick commercial break. This is called with the Black Tea Sip. Go grab your cups, baby. I'm going to fill it up in a minute.
Okay, so I got on your, now, I just want to clarify.
Okay.
When we come out of with the commercials, you want the intro or your promo?
Intro.
Intro, gotcha. And could it be called something else? Because I keep looking for book I am, like and something in the because I was trying to go through all of the ones that would be short enough for.
Okay, maybe it's a spot. I don't know.
Because I got these two here ready to go after this song, and then I've looked all over in both folders, and I even looked in the backup folder over here.
I don't know what they call. Don't worry about it. I don't want you to stress yourself out. I don't know what they call.
Because we can put a replacement in, and then afterwards I can go and listen through to make sure I get it. I don't want you to worry about. He didn't pay this week, no way. Oh my God! They don't get no further than this. Oh my God!
I mean, he cool.
Ooh, this show is phenomenal. It is. This time it's already 4:09. We just started. My God.
I've been on. Let me see how long I've been on. I can look at this thing. Oh, what about today? What's the day? Okay, 36 minutes ago.
I gotta follow your page because I miss it being in the other room. So I'm like.
Now you talk about sports.
Yes, ma'am. But this is what we need right now. Like, and I've been missing out. Like, nah, I'm gonna have to go back and watch the videos now.
I'm gonna really spend some time and really promote my page. Usually, what I do is I share it to my regular personal page, and then people get on. Like, I got 2 people watching right now, and I'm so surprised. So,
you breaking it down, like you recalling stuff to my memory that I remember, like yesterday, like the Supreme Court with Gore and them, and how they just said, oh, whatever. Like,
yeah, they let him steal it. And he stole it the same. I'm talking about that, and then he stole it the same way in Texas.
You have got to make your way to a microphone in Arizona. I'm talking spirit to spirit. I'm talking spirit to spirit.
If they stick a mic in my face, they're gonna get a mouthful.
I'm praying for that.
And Jane is gonna be like, come on.
Because the thing is, you're doing it from such a level of articulation and passion that
I appreciate that.
that you ain't got to fact check it. But and you still feel the emotion.
And I tell y'all Google me, and I'll say it.
No, I've been watching this thing like a hawk, and so everything is like.
But I try to give it to people in a way that they'll enjoy it.
I've been over here cracking up. That's why I kept my mask up during the segment. I always pull my mask back up because I'm over here cracking up. But I'm getting the meat of what you're saying.
That's what I try to do, like, because it can be boring. Because the guy that I've been dating for 2 years, he told me he's been voting his whole life, family all vote. He said he's never been interested because he will call me from the golf course and be like, "Hey, what did you tell me about such and such?" And then like his friends will get on the phone and be like, "Crap, my wife was." And I'm like, "You and your wife?" And I told my wife I was gonna ask you. And I was like, okay, but he said no, because you break it down.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
you putting it on my level. You talking to me like we just having a burger at Chili's.
That's what I hope to do. So thank you for telling me that.
Right, because sometimes it gets over my head when they start talking about.
Democrats love data and stats and figures, and Republicans just tell a good story.
They were talking about that. Just blew me away when you said that, because they were talking about why we surprised about the turnout in Florida. You were so eloquent the way you broke that down is because we don't tell a story. I was watching the O.J. Simpson thing on Netflix the other night, and Johnny Cochran said on there, he says, evidence doesn't rule the day.
No.
The jury is going to follow the story that they most believe.
I have been with that, before he passed away. I went to school with a guy whose dad is Willie Gary, and he's a big-time lawyer in Florida. You Google him, he like 3 grades. They were good friends. Me and Johnny Cochran done sat there and laughed, lied, and talked.
That is so awesome. And he said that.
Holy was my boy.
He said our job is to tell a better story than the prosecution.
That's how he was.
That hit me upside my head when you said that because we didn't tell a story. We gave them the data, and I was looking at the data like, what's this mean?
Right.
But when you say grandmama won't have no Social Security, I get that. That hits home with me.
And it's gonna hit home with anybody. It doesn't matter what their station is in life.
Heavenly Father, we humbly pray that you send a microphone her way tomorrow in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. Because you might fool around and get a gig out there once they hear you break down a segment. We need this from a face that we trust.
Well, I've been approached about a streaming service too. They asked me, but I told them I wasn't leaving Fishbowl. Sammy been too good to me.
More than one gig? Is it a non-compete? Okay. Because you have another call in this.
Well, your mouth, God,
all right, here we go. This has been so educating and entertaining.
Oh, well, good.
And this intro. All right, let me get back in board out mode. I'm trying to not to be a fan and just work this show.
Oh, well, no, I need my fan, sir.
I will have you unmuted in 30 seconds.
Okay.
Hello, all you melanated beings.
Give him hell, Miss Coy. Give him hell. All right, in 10. All right, let's go.
All right. And we're back. If you are just joining us, we are unpacking what's really going on with the Democratic Party. And we are talking about the orangutan running 3-ring circus from the Oval Office because, well, everybody needs a little comedy in their life. Who doesn't love a circus? Except for the fact that that circus happens to be the United States of America. And so we're now talking about what we were talking about before the break, what happened in Florida and why people vote a certain way. And now I just want to, if you will indulge me, babies, I just want to talk about, well, black folk. I just want to spend a little time with black folks. We did talk about Latinos, and we talked about the Cubans voting for Trump in Florida and what happened. And I said, we don't tell a good story. But let's talk about, colored folk. So let's talk about the fact that, well, now I do want to give a shout out to Reverend Stevens in Philadelphia, who said that black folks will determine the race, that the black vote out of Philadelphia and that county will determine who wins Pennsylvania because, and these are his words, not mine, sure wish I could take credit, it's so eloquent. He said we went from picking cotton to picking presidents.
Come on now.
Now, I like everything about it. I think I might just say it one more time. We went from picking cotton to picking presidents. And the reason he's saying that is because that vote coming out of Philadelphia, so what we saw was the red mirage. And I like the fact that Jake Tapper on CNN said it's not really a mirage, it's a real thing. And it is, it's a real thing. You have this red surge on election day. Let's talk about why. Why? Because a lot of senior citizens vote early, disabled. They vote, not early, mail-in ballots, right? And they voted mail-in ballots because at the age of 65, you don't have to get up and go. But here's the other reason that a lot of black people vote with mail-in ballots after they're senior citizens. Because one, older black people understand the value of the vote. They understand why we vote. They understand what it took for us to vote. Let me just give y'all a little example. When I was serving on the task force, the mayor of Dallas, Texas, he had a task force that he put in place to find out what to do about Confederate monuments. Some of y'all may remember I served on that task force. Well, that task force then kind of grew, if you will, tree with many branches, into a work group where we were to contextualize the information about Confederacy at the Fair Park and then put in key monuments that talked about the brutalization and victimization, oppression, suppression, and depression of Black Americans in this city. So we started working on that. He said, why are you telling me that? Well, you know, I get to my point. Sometimes I'm slow around the corner, but I'm fast out the gate. So now, here we are. We're looking at all this information, right? And we're starting to talk about what's happening. We start to break down what's happening in this country. And we start to look at very realistically, what do these symbols mean? How does it make you feel? And Black folks were all for it. Well, some, you know, you have the intellectuals who were talking about, oh, we need to be worried about other things and we don't need to worry about imagery. But imagery and symbolism is how people are perceived. So when a particular convention comes to Dallas, Texas, and they're at the, what is this right here, where the man is standing on tall on the pier right there at the cemetery, right by City Hall. And there's a convention center there. K. Bailey Hutchins. It was going to come to me in a minute. K. Bailey Hutchins. Whew. And there's a huge Confederate monument there with Confederate soldiers. We wanted to pull that down. They said, well, why? And my point was that is the imagery that people see. And people come to Dallas, Texas, as well as other major metropolitan cities all over the United States. This is the imagery that they see. And so there seems to be a celebration of Confederacy. And Confederacy is tantamount, tied to, and embodies slavery. The idea of a second-class citizen, the idea of only being 3/5 of a man, the idea of that is wrapped up in a lot of what has happened over the 4 years of Trump. But let us be very clear. Trump is only a mirror of America. He didn't turn America into what it is. He's a mirror of it. So when you have the Reverend out of Philadelphia say we went from picking cotton to picking presidents, that spoke to my spirit. Now, somebody else said they thought it was stupid. But let's talk about what that means. What it means is you have all of these ballots coming in for Trump for Pennsylvania. And it looks like he has it. And he had a very narrow path. If some of y'all are living, go back to my Christian upbringing. You know, your grandmama used to talk about, you know, a rich man passing through the eye of a needle. Now, let me say this. Y'all know I'm a history buff. The eye of the needle was a real place at the time. I mean, I certainly couldn't find it now on the map, and so don't ask me. But the eye of the needle was a real place, but it was a cutout and it was very, very low to enter. And so you rode on camelback if you were rich. And so it was hard for the camel to get down and pass through that passageway. And so that's why they said it was as difficult for a rich man to pass through the eye of a needle. This is what they were saying about Trump. His path back to the White House to continue to run the three-ring circus from the Oval Office was as difficult, not impossible, as difficult as a rich man going through the eye of a needle. Because you had the red mirage. They counted election day ballots first because several states in this great United States don't allow ballot counting until either the day before election day or 7 a.m. election day, and some not until 7 p.m. election day when the polls close. So you count election day ballots first. So whoosh, Trump and them. Looks like they're going to win. And then you start to count mail-in ballots, because the mail-in ballots come from primarily minorities and Black folks in particular, because not only do we not all have transportation, and the bus line doesn't always run to the election office, the county election office, right? And then we also have underlying health conditions. So we know that Black folks and Latinos typically vote by mail-in ballot after they're 65. With that being said, when they count those last, then you start to see an uptick that you're seeing now with Joe Biden rising in Pennsylvania. But then you also start to realize that the early voting is what? It's Democrat. We don't like to stand in line. The other thing is we're trying to get it done because we understand that there's always going to be some trickery. Mm-hmm. I want to use another word, but my mama would get mad if I talk like that on the radio. There's some trickery going on, so we try to get our ballot in. So we heard and saw several examples. I talked about it on the show. We saw several examples of people where they didn't get their ballot. There was an older Black woman that was driven 300 miles by her son, 600 miles round trip, because she didn't get her mail-in ballot, her absentee ballot, so same thing, at her son's house where she was staying. So he drove his mother home where her license was registered so that she could vote, and she sat there in the election office and she voted. But you also come to find out that she's a former school teacher, formerly served on the city council, and understood what it meant to vote, because she was of the age where she understands that first they gave us a literacy test, okay, to make sure you were smart enough to vote. They don't give you a test to have children, but they gave us a test to make sure we were smart enough to vote. We started passing that in alarming rates. And guess what happened? They started flunking it in alarming rates. So then they went to poll tax. Now I remember the story of my grandfather, and I've said this several times, but indulge me, where we had to pay, my grandfather would save $2.20 all year. It was $1.10 for him and $1.10 for my grandmother. They had to pay a poll tax to vote. Poll tax is not gone. It's just renamed. It's just kind of Jim Crowed a little bit, repackaged, pretty little bow on it. They give it back to you. They give it back to you in the state of Florida. Because the state of Florida says that if you are an ex-con, an ex-felon, and you serve your time and you're off paper, you can vote. Except for the revamping of the poll tax. You have to pay all your fines. See how they continue to do that? That's a Republican policy, not a Democrat policy. You start talking to Black folks and Latinos about what it is that they really do. But I started this segment off by telling you, I want to talk to some of you little darkies out there. Some of y'all following Ice Cube, Kanye, and 50 Cent. I don't quite understand why you followed them. I would really like to see Ice Cube's voting record. It is public. I just haven't pulled it off. I haven't pulled it up because out of fear of being disgusted. More than I am now. You know, like I can only take so much disgust at a time. And so I really wondered if he was on some Shaquille O'Neal type stuff where he had never voted before. Because he had this 36-page plan. And he gave it to Biden, and he gave it to Trump. And whoever jumped first, that's who he was going to pay attention to, and that's who he was going to endorse, and that's who he encouraged everybody to vote. Well, now there's this theory that goes around, and I'm inclined to believe it. A bit of a conspiracy theorist, I guess. But getting paid for their vote. A lot of these Black people that you see behind Trump with these MAGA hats on, they got paid. That's why they're there. The two sisters that they finally got rid of that were shameful, I won't even call their names because their names will not roll off of my tongue. They were paid for the coonery and the buffoonery and the step and fetch it and the pseudo blackface. Because you know all skin folk ain't kin folk. And blackness is a state of mind. It's not just the color of your skin. And y'all all know this. I'll tell you things you know. So for those that voted for Trump, I will tell you this. They'll tell you that platinum plan is really more like aluminum foil. They'll tell you that that plan was to the free Black people. It was the new Emancipation Proclamation. Trump might as well have been Abraham Lincoln, except for the fact that he's not half Black. And I said it out of my mouth. So, because he was half Black. He was what folks call passing. So when we start to talk about Black folks voting, and it is deeply upsetting that about 20% of eligible Black male voters voted for Trump. That's because, well, they're stupid. Let me tell you why. I don't think that we're monolithic. I talked about the Latinos and Hispanics not being one-dimensional. We're certainly not. But they fell for the banana in their tailpipe. That's exactly what Trump did. He inserted a banana in their tailpipe because they actually believe this whole notion about criminal reform, right? Criminal justice reform. And they believe that notion. Now, I am not going to tell you that Trump has not commuted some sentences, and we know about Alice Johnson. Kim Kardashian got her out. And I actually thought at one time maybe Kanye is doing this step and fetch it routine so that Kim can get what she wants, because that I could kind of understand, like, oh, they're a team and he gonna take one for the team so she gets what you want. No, we just talking about mental illness. But with that being said, he has not done the things that we're talking about, but he's done them for narcissistic reasons. And for those who cannot look and see and read through the lines and understand what's happening, then you fell for it. You fell for the okie doke. You played yourself. You didn't do what Ice Cube said long time ago. You didn't check yourself before you wrecked the rest of us. Because what happened is you start to believe the repackaging. That's why I say it's aluminum foil. That's what you do when you run out of paper plates and the styrofoam to take the food home from your grandmother's house and Sunday dinner or the family reunion. You just ask for some furl, because that's what the whole lot of y'all that's voted for Trump, that's what y'all call it. It's not foil, y'all call it furl. And so that is exactly what you did. You fell for the platinum plan that was originally tin foil. And let me say this to y'all. Y'all ought to be insulted that he called it a platinum plan. Because he basically hip-hopped you. He might as well call it a Cadillac plan. Because he was talking to you, darkies. And y'all fell for it. Y'all actually believe that this man is going to have reform. Let me just talk to that. Let me speak to that reform. Because remember, he was going to give something like $80 billion to HBCUs. Remember that? And we were all excited. It was the whole thing at Howard. Howard got enough money. I don't know why he won't get something to Fisk and Tuskegee and, Paul Quinn College. Why don't he want to get something to Houston Tillerson? But, okay, that's not what we're talking about. So he was going to do that. There's recently an executive order signed by Trump in which you cannot discuss, prepare, plan, and have an overall objective to promote one race. I'm not talking about promote one race over another. I'm not talking about like Proud Boys. To simply have a platform within your mission statement, your objectives, to promote the enhancement, the empowerment, the betterment of the race. What do you think historically Black colleges and universities are doing? That is right. They speak to the enhancement, the betterment, and the empowerment through educational advancement of Black people. Under the new executive order, Black HBCUs and Black children, college students, would not be eligible for federal aid. So he's going to give $80 billion to who? See, I feel like during this whole election process, someone put these, not my words, I can't take credit for it, wish I could. Someone said that they felt like waiting to find out who the president was going to be was like waiting to find out your grade on a group project. She then added, I know I did my part. I then added, because some of these folks didn't study. Some of y'all don't have a clue to what's going on. I had a friend tell me that I went to school with, Delta, I'm their favorite though. But she said, I voted for Trump. I almost fell over like the stinky foot man. You know that commercial where they take the shoe off and everybody falls out of the man? I almost fell over like the stinky foot man was in the room with me because I couldn't believe it. Because I just didn't know that she wasn't smart. I didn't know that she was naive and gullible in that way. And so you hear Black people constantly talking about they are supporting Trump because of criminal justice reform. But if you read between the lines, most of that platinum aluminum foil plan is nothing but a repackaging of other plans. So there's a part of that plan where it talks about women that are pregnant, or it's specifically geared toward women. But ailments, if you're pregnant or if you just had a baby, there are certain things the police are not going to do. Well, Obama passed that legislation. That's already done. That's in the book. Check the box. It's already done. So there's this suggestion that he's giving you something. Much of what he's giving you, you've already received. You just didn't know it because you didn't study. You prepared by listening to everybody else. You didn't do your own homework. That's called due diligence. And you have a responsibility to do your due diligence because you affect the rest of us. I really don't like the fact that some of y'all are out here not studying and taking tests and voting for folks and things and affecting me and mine. How we live and thrive or survive future forward rests on the decisions that you're making, and some of you are really, really ill-equipped to make these suggestions and go in a voting booth and tap on the little screen. Some of you are very ill-prepared. So now there's this thing about, now this is part of the Platinum Plan, where they are reducing the sentences. and they're looking at reducing the sentences but it's not really a clear-cut plan of letting people out. They're talking about reduction of sentences, but not really letting people out of prison. See, Barack Obama did it. 6,000 people were released. 2,000 were illegal immigrants. They immediately got out of the federal penitentiary system and then went to ICE. And then about 4,000 were Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, the majority, a sprinkling of white folks. That happened. Now, I had a problem with it. Y'all know I've been critical. I'm critical of all elected officials because I feel like that's my job to hold them accountable. Now, I had a problem with the fact that they didn't give them job training skills and teach them how to look for a job online. The state will do it, the feds won't. But this plan that he has for the reduction of sentences, well, Cory Booker spoke to that. This plan that he has in the Platinum Plan about lynchings and making it a federal hate crime, Kamala and Cory spoke to that. This is just a repackaging. And the fact that y'all are out here just voting all willy-nilly and not knowing what you're doing, you are affecting other people. So the Black people, the 20% Black men that voted for Trump, you get the Dildo of the Day award. You all are tools. And you have significantly tarnished, tainted, and hurt those of us who love and celebrate and adore Black men. Like, we'll never look at you the same. Like, I wish there was like some Cain and Abel kind of thing, and you could have like a mark on your forehead so that we would recognize you, and then we could like go the other way. Because what you have effectively done is you have started this movement that the Republican Party is going to try to build on. That they're going to try to capture more Black votes when you're voting against your own self-interest. Now, some of y'all are going to say, well, what did Biden do? He sponsored the 1994 crime bill. Yes, I've spoken on that. I talked about that when he first got in the race. And what I said was, I wanted him to speak to it, right? Just speak to it. Because politics is an evolution. I've grown myself. I actually said, way back when we were in the other studio, I actually said, you need to get something for your vote. And if they are not talking about reparations, then we need to really start looking and thinking about holding back our vote. I said that. I own it. But then COVID hit, and Black folks started dying at an alarming rate. And I knew that Biden already had the plan. Like, he's already got that plan. Obama was like, you got that plan, right? He was like, yeah, I got that plan. Like, they already has the plan. Day one, being sworn in, he's going to implement this plan. In fact, today, instead of holding another press conference, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris actually met with key experts of infection control. They are looking at how to implement the plan when he's sworn in January. He's already working on it. He's not tweeting. Did y'all see that Twitter is now not allowing Trump's tweets about illegal ballots and voter fraud and voter suppression and no Republicans are in the room while they're counting the ballots, none of which is true. They have never been able to prove that there was large, widespread voter suppression ever. They've never been able to prove that. And there was a test done by one of the think tanks. And they looked at all of ballots over a period of time. And I know in one state, they found 16 out of X amount of millions. I think it was 3 million votes. They found 16 that were kind of iffy. There's no suggestion that there's any voter fraud. I mean, they did persecute that Black woman because she filed a provisional ballot. The provisional ballot certificate was not even counted. So, but that wasn't about a ballot thing. That was a Black thing, but I'm digressed. So now we're looking at why Black people are doing this. Why are they going this way? Because they want to believe that they are the Republican Party, the party of aid, the emancipator, but that's not who it is, because this man is inciting civil war. You have people saying, and I quote, one of the militias in Alabama, the saying was, We know if Biden wins, there was huge voter fraud. The journalist then asked, well, what about Trump? Oh, we know if Trump won, there was no voter fraud. What? Wait a minute. Now, I don't mean wait a minute. I mean wait a minute. WAYMENT. Wait a minute. What? You know that if Trump wins and is reelected as president, there was no voter fraud. But if Biden wins, there's rampant voter fraud. But that's never been proven. But see how the Republicans, remember I told you how the Republicans tell a good story?
Mhm.
And all we do is stats and figures. See, I gave you like it's 3 million, they found like 16. We need to be able to tell a better story. I'm gonna take a quick break. This is called with your black tea sip. I'll be back in just a minute. Stay with me, babies. But see how the Republicans, remember I told you. Okay, so I've been on an hour.
You don't sound like nobody. I'm really trying to play show voice and your personality, your delivery. Just you don't sound like nobody. Like you got your own lane. I'm over here cracking up and getting it all in at the same time. Like it's so digestible.
Good, because the Angela will be sitting over there. He's so
Man, I need him to invest emotionally.
No,
Yeah, he is. Yeah, he's just really
he's
quiet.
used to. He's just used to it.
Today is the day for me to work this show, though.
Well, I'm glad that you came.
I saw it on the thing, and I was like, man, I come in at 3 today. I was like, hey, I got y'all. Like, I'll take care. I was sitting here waiting that you own you for 3
You were, and I was the other guy was there. And then I went over there to let them know I was here because I wasn't sure which studio they were putting me in because I knew it was pre-recording.
Because Gary would tell me your show was fire. And he was like, man. I'm like, man,
Gary's just a sweetheart, though. He's a sweetheart.
But he's woke enough to really understand. Because if it was whack, he would have been like, bruh, take your phone and
take your phone.
No, this has been great.
Take your phone and that's hilarious.
I never knew about the history story you gave about the rich man and like just learning this nuggets today.
I try to do that. I try to give people stuff that they.
It's so digestible. Like I can't wait for the Facebook Live video so I can put my mom in the comments so she can see it.
Oh, good. Yeah.
I had already texted her, told her to listen to it. I'm gonna text her after to see what she says, but you said Fisk on the radio. I grew up 5 feet away from Fisk in North Nashville, Tennessee. I did, and I went to Tennessee State University.
Wow. Mm-hmm. So both of my uncles, my mom's younger brothers, they graduated from Tennessee State.
Mm-hmm. So you just hitting all the right targets today. Fisk gets no recognition except from you and Bill Cosby when he was on the Cosby Show. He'd say Fisk and Harry.
Well, and Tom Joyner.
Shouts out to Tom Joyner.
He talks about this.
Look, I'm going to talk your whole head off during the break. All right, we're back in 15 seconds. All right, fourth quarter. Let's dunk on somebody here. All right. In 5, 4, 3, 2.
All right, we're back. This is Court with your black tea sip. If you're just joining us, we are talking about the presidential race. We're talking about the orangutan running 3-ring circus from the Oval Office. We are talking about what happened in Florida. We're talking about black folks voting for Trump or voting against their own self-interest. And before we broke, we were talking about how they had fallen for a banana in their tailpipe. And so I want to just give you a little bit of information where we are. At least when I put this together, I've been in here with you all, so I haven't been able to check the news. But we have Nevada. At the time, Biden was up 7,647 votes. It's about Arizona, we're looking at about 70,000, North Carolina, 76,737, Pennsylvania, 135,671, Georgia, 18,000, but the gap was closing on that. And I talked about earlier the red mirage. The gap was closing because now they're getting into the mail-in ballots, and they're getting into, even in Georgia, which I thought was very interesting, they talked about counting provisional ballots. Now, typically, they don't count a provisional ballot. Provisional ballot, at least in the state of Texas, is a throwaway ballot. And if you all follow this show, you know that I talked about filing a declaration where you could say, well, no, I don't have these particular things that you require for me to vote. You fill out that declaration, and you can be able to tell them why you don't have those things. Now, y'all know I told y'all that before early voting. And then you could vote with a real ballot. And Jane Hamilton, senior advisor for the Biden-Harris campaign, she was actually the plaintiff in that lawsuit, because her thing was sometimes Black folks don't have, and it's not just about having ID, especially college students. So, we talked about, this is why Black folks don't need to vote Republican, because it's the Republicans that do this. You could use a gun license, a carry license, concealed handgun license, I need to say it correctly. You could use that, but you couldn't use a college ID. Why? Because more Black people are going to have a college ID, and less of them are going to have a gun license, right? This is what I'm talking about, disenfranchisement. But y'all out here voting and not studying. Y'all just out here on the group project, just out here affecting the rest of us. So when we start to talk about that, then we also have to look at other tools and resources that the Republican Party uses against us. So if you know that a party is doing those things, why are you voting for them? So here's the other thing. So you've got some rich Black folk, professional athletes, some CEOs, some little folks that went on through, and they're only concerned about their dollars, like 50 cents, who said that if Trump does not win, he's going to leave. Adios, amigo. I actually think that is the greatest betrayal that I've heard, certainly in the last decade. That a Black man who went from talking about he has a candy stick to launching a show. I don't really know if he has a candy stick, because have y'all noticed that all of his women are old and funny looking? I don't think if you have a candy stick that you go around with Chelsea Handler. Now, shout out to Chelsea Handler. I'm not necessarily a fan, but I recognize what she tried to do for us. So shout out to Chelsea Handler. When 50 put that ridiculous tweet out, his ex-girlfriend, Chelsea Handler, that's how I know he does not have a candy stick, said that he was one of her favorite exes, and then told him to not vote for Trump and she would pay his taxes. See how he allowed himself to be emasculated by a white woman that he used to give a candy stick to? That's how we know it's peppermint stick, baby, not candy stick. So, moving on. 50 said that if Trump did not win, he's going to leave the country. This same 50 who said that he had to worry about his assets and protecting his money is the same 50 cents that wants y'all to watch Power. Mm-hmm. Now, I like Power. I like the show. I like the show except for the fact that they keep putting that little boy in front of the clothes, but that's not what we're talking about. I don't think I'm going to be able to watch it anymore. See, that has left such a bad taste in my mouth because, see, homie, we were buying your records before our counterparts were. Mm-hmm. We are the ones who push your show forward. Mm-hmm. See, the sister that's writing your show, that's talking about the show and trying to embody the certain aspects of Black life so that it is seen and shown on the screen for our entertainment, she was not anticipating that. Because we thought we were in this thing. We excused the fact that you made fun of Floyd Mayweather and said he was illiterate because he's ignorant, so we excused that. And when you attacked other people like the game and all that, we excused that because we knew the game was selling independently and making $1 million plus a year. So we said, well, the game good. We gonna still rock with you, Fitty.
Mm-hmm.
But now you've gone a little too far. Now you a house Negro. Now you done told us you skin folk, but you ain't kin folk. Now you're showing us that you're better than us, that you don't care about our plight, that you have been elevated beyond your color. Except that's not true. That too is propaganda from the Republican Party. They've told you that they accept you. But then the truth came out. See, I love the fact that it always, what's done in the dark always comes to the light. Because 50 Cent, who is a superior businessman, I mean, we can't take that away from him. Now, I'm not going to give him nothing. I'm just not going to take. My dad said, don't add and don't take away. So I'm not adding and I'm not taking away. No arithmetic when it comes to 50, okay? But he did walk in the gas station getting ready to buy something to drink, a libation, and he looked at the water, and the water was twice as much as the juice, and he said, I need to invest in water, and he bought into vitamin water. That's the real story, right? So this man is not stupid. You can be ignorant and not be illiterate. Now, he can read, write, make decisions, so he's not illiterate. But this statement here is plenty ignorant. I mean, I-G, capital N-U-T, got a little nut on me. You understand what I'm saying? Ignorant. Because what he has essentially said to y'all is that he's rocking with Trump, and really he wants you too. So I'm wondering, he said that they came to him in 2016 and offered him $500,000. And he said he turned it down and wasn't worth it. Are we going to find out in a little while that 50's got IRS tax problems or something? Because if it doesn't make sense, it's a lie somewhere. This has got to be a lie. None of this makes sense. It seems to me that really and truly, if 4 years ago they came to you and you said there were things about his personality and his, well, I can't say policy because he never really has any, that you didn't like, 4 years after he has advanced his racist rhetoric, you are for him, 50? I don't know, maybe Donald Trump gave him a candy stick because this doesn't make no sense to me. I don't understand any of it. I mean, I really don't understand any of it. But then my daddy told me, if you understand there's something wrong with you, and there's nothing wrong with me. So I've decided that these colored people that are voting for Trump may not be illiterate, but they are plenty ignorant. All right, let's talk about something else. Talk about Black excellence. Black excellence, I love giving this award. Melody Maddox is the first African-American woman to be elected sheriff of DeKalb County, Georgia. She graduated from HBCU, Morris Brown. She's a member of the NAACP. She has a psychology degree from Morris Brown. She has a master's in divinity. And she's actually drop dead gorgeous. So we're going to see some changes in DeKalb County because there's somebody who understands the Black life experience. This is why voting is so important. I know y'all are all worried about the presidential election, but you need to vote down the ballot. And you don't need to show up every 4 years. You need to show up every year, every 2 years, every time there's an election. Because if you stay at home, you might not get your trash picked up. Did y'all know that? You're a city council person. So when stuff goes haywire, you pick up the phone, you call your city council person, you talk to their assistant, you say, hey, my trash hasn't been picked up. Somebody on that end of the phone says, okay, what's your name, what's your address? They get on the phone, they call sanitation, they get it straightened out. That's why you need to vote down the ballot, not just the presidential election. This is why you need to take a vested interest. Okay, all right, I won't preach because I really left my soapbox at home. I'm not going to start preaching. I am going to say that Melody Maddox, folks in Georgia showed up for her in DeKalb County. She is now the sheriff. We're going to see some changes, some improvements. We're going to see some things change because she understands, and hopefully she won't run into the same grenades under her chair that our police chief had, right? But Marion Brown, shout out to Marion Brown, she also won police chief. And so there are Black women that we would like to believe that are actually doing their thing and making sure that when we find ourselves in the system, much like Amber Givens here, Dallas County Judge. There are programs and processes like when Cruzo, who is now the district attorney, when he was judge, he implemented a drug and alcohol court to not throw us away. This is why you vote. Okay, we're gonna wrap up and we're gonna talk about a couple more things about the election. This is Court with Black T Sip. Stay with me. We're gonna take a quick break. I'm off and I don't know how long I've been on, so I don't know when my time is up.
Yeah, we got a show at 5.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna come in and hang up. I'm gonna come in and wrap up.
Okay, and just let me know how long you want the song to play.
Okay.
Because our 5 o'clock show is a Skype show, so it's not like you have to haul people in and out.
Okay.
We just need to get it on.
I'll be done in 2 minutes. Let me just come in and wrap up.
All right, let's roll. So I wish you could go for another hour. I am loving this. All right, here we go. 3, 2.
All right.
Everybody, it's your favorite crazy coach, Coach Ray. You are listening to The Flow. Catch my show, The Flow, every Friday from 1 to 3.
It's not recording.
All right. This is Corey with Black T Sip. I hope you enjoyed your time with me. I enjoyed my time with you as always. We'll do it again. So we know that Arizona has until November 12th, that's a week from Thursday, next week, to actually count all their ballots. And so I'll be back with you next Friday. This is Corey with the Black T Sip, and I'm out. Diamond curls and Jerry curls. Y'all stay black, stay powerful, and stay with it. Joe's gonna make it happen.
It was ready, set,
Okay.
go.